welcome to Chandigarh Lalit Kala Academy. We are very privileged to have you here, and I hope you feel the same.
Thank you. Yes, it's wonderful.
Let's begin with your artistic journey, and since your artistic journey starts from a breaking point of your career in medicine.
Yes.
So I would like to understand whether you jumped right away from medicine to art, or was there something in between? Was there some kind of a training? Did you opt to go for some kind of course or?
No, I was right from my childhood. I was exposed to art by my father. He was a painter and also a teacher at a school. He taught English literature and he taught art secondary school. And as just 5 years old, 5, 6 years old, I was already acquainted with colors. I knew which is raw sienna and which is cerulean blue and which is ultramarine blue, because my father would tell me to squeeze it onto his palette.
Okay.
And then he taught us how to do watercolors, me, my sister. And so I was already connected with art, but never ever thought that I will become an artist, because first of all, my father had a lot of financial difficulties. He was not able to make a living out of art. So the idea of taking art as a profession never even occurred to me.
Okay.
And I was a good student. I was 7th in the whole board in SSC and in 12th standard. So I could get admissions anywhere. And at the age of 18, I wanted to be a doctor, an engineer, a scientist. I even wanted to be an author. Even thought of becoming the Prime Minister.
Okay.
So I was a very ambitious child. And the ambition was instilled in me by my father, who actually did not have any ambition of his own.
Okay.
So he gave me what he did not have. And so when I became a doctor, he did not force me to become a doctor. I went to medical school and then started practice, and I found it very routine.
So where were you practicing, in Goa?
In Kalangut, in Goa. And the idea of spending my lifetime treating English dysentery was horrible. And then I thought, as a country we have taken enough shit from the British, I didn't want to take any more. And so I started, I was always painting, and when I was a medical student, I was a regular cartoonist for the Navin Times, which is a local newspaper, and for the Illustrated Weekly, when M.V. Kamath was the editor, I had a column.
Right. Okay.
So I was already connected, so I was never without a pencil and a sketch pen.
Okay.
And so after deciding that, okay, I want to give up my medicine, I started doing watercolors, which I did very well, and they started selling like hotcakes.
Right.
Because they were good quality. Basically, I did a series of Goan houses, windows, but my forte was basically showing the bright sunlight. You could see the watercolor and you could feel the sunlight burning there.
Okay.
So there is a technique I had learned from my father. He learned it from Haldankar, who was a very well-known painter of the 1940s. And so they started selling very well. And I was actually making even more money than a doctor, because tourists started buying them as souvenirs.
Okay.
And I started my own gallery because there was no other gallery. So I started the first private gallery in Goa.
All right.
And basically because there was no gallery, private gallery. And that's how I started. And then after some time I had the same feeling what I had as a doctor. I said, this is routine.
Okay.
Doing watercolors, it had become a technique, and it gave me no pleasure. And then I said, there's something wrong here. And so I had an opportunity during this time to show my watercolors and a few other paintings which I was doing in Europe, in Germany.
Okay.
And I went there. Then I went to modern art museums, looked at whatever was being shown there, understood nothing. Because my father had not grown beyond Gauguin.
Okay.
So for him, whatever happened after Gauguin was nonsense.
All right.
And that's what I was taught. So when I went to these museums, I understood nothing. And I thought either I am a complete fool or they are taking me for a ride.
Okay.
So I decided I am a fool, and I started learning. I started reading, I started asking other artists, and then slowly after going to I went to Tate Modern, I had an opportunity to go to America and all this, I suddenly, it was like a Pandora's box which opened. And then I started getting goose pimples when I saw some of these works, and that's how I became an installation artist.
But you never felt the need to have a formal education? Did you feel that that would help, or no?
No, because basically
Your own learning was
drawing was, I knew it, my father had taught me. As far as history of art is concerned, up to Gauguin he had taught me. What I had to learn was what happened after Gauguin. And that I learned through the modern, my biggest teachers are modern art museums of the world. I learned from them, and then through other friends and by reading. So then slowly I started getting it.
Okay, as an artist, how do you feel, the artist started from the cave drawings.
Yes.
From cave drawings it came to canvas, and canvas became larger and larger, and then where and why the artist felt the need for installation art, in your understanding?
Okay. See, basically I feel art is an expression of an era. So the work of a caveman, when he does something on that wall, is as important as Picasso's work. Because that is the expression of his time. And then many other realism came, many isms came. So man wants to explore more and more. If you have gone already to the moon, you want to go to the Mars. So there is this need for exploration, need for expression. So every era will have a new need. You cannot go back. Actually, this is another subject. This is not basically why in India many things were not happening because of the colonial rule. We developed a very complex mentality. Some people wanted to go back to the miniatures, others wanted to go towards the West. And there were some who decided there should be an interesting synthesis. Like the first family was the Tagore's family who did that. So I think art is an expression of an era, and each one has to find the expression of his own era, our own era.
So how come in your personal case you graduated from watercolor to installation? So was it directly from watercolor to installation, or there was a progression, gradual progression, and how did it come about?
It was accidental almost initially. The first installation I created was almost accidental. I was designing some big lamps for a project in copper. It was a big disc, and it was about 1.5 meter diameter disc. And I had this disc, and I don't know what came upon me because I had looked at installation. I just put it in my jeep and went to the seashore with one mason, and I dug a big crater in the sand and put the disc on the top with the light underneath it. And I put the light. I took the electrical connection from one of the beach shacks, and I put the lights on, and I was stunned myself. I didn't know what I had created. It looked like a new planet. And so my first installation was accidental, and then that led to many other things.
Okay. Which other artists, installation artists, have inspired you, or you felt that wow, this is the kind of work?
Yeah. See, basically once you start understanding concepts, like one of the artists I would say is Richard Long. Richard Long is an English artist who actually does works in nature. He, for example, walks for 200 kilometers on a plateau. And on the plateau there are tiny flowers. He will just pick up the flowers in one straight line, and that's his work. So here what happens is he converts a walk into a sculpture.
Okay.
So that fascinated me, that idea of a walk becoming a sculpture. And then I got fascinated with Andy Goldsworthy, who uses petals and does small things. Then after reading the history of land art, the Smithson's spiral jetty, Maria, the 1 kilometer by 1 mile area in the desert, there were stainless steel pipes which attract the lightning. So all these sort of things fascinated me, and then I started reading, I started connecting my work with history, I started connecting it with politics, with social issues, because I'm essentially an activist. I started as a student activist also. That also gave me a tremendous confidence, because I was able to address larger gatherings and keep myself abreast with social issues. And I think making of an artist, all these things are important.
I have two questions now for you. One is when you go in for installation art, the practical question is how do you survive on this art? Because there are no buyers for installation art. It's good for your artistic growth. It's aesthetically great, but who's going to buy this? So for an artist who has to survive on art, what is the way out? Number two, you brought in a lot of political and social consciousness into your works. Now once politics enters into art, in today's environment particularly, it becomes a very dangerous game. So how do you try to balance this, that you convey your political thoughts as well as you do not attract any kind of problem for your expression, and you also retain your freedom of expression?
No, first of all, I will answer the second question first.
Okay. Yeah.
That's because one thing I would say that free expression, which I believe in, and if you say at what point there should be a sort of restriction on freedom of speech, I feel there should be no restriction. My freedom of expression only stops where your nose begins.
Okay.
So unless I punch you, okay, I should not be allowed to do that. But until then, I could offend you, because freedom of expression is basically a freedom to offend. If I am not offending, then the freedom of expression is anyway there. I want to just call somebody a praise to glory. That freedom anyway we have.
Politically correct.
Politically or socially anyway, to say anything good about anybody, that freedom we have.
Yeah.
So basically freedom of expression basically means that a freedom to offend. And it has to be there. And as far as I am concerned, I sort of value it tremendously. And I go to any extent to basically preserve that right of mine, that freedom of mine. So I have faced death threats for that, but I am prepared to face that. But I will not budge. And so whatever I believe in, I have to pursue. That is the second question.
Okay.
And now the first question was, how do I survive? Now it was very difficult to survive. As I told you, I started with my paintings, watercolors, and they were selling very well. And my patients, formal patients, they say, डॉक्टर को क्या हो रहा है? वो रास्ते पे बैठ के वाटर कलर पेंट करता है, प्रैक्टिस नहीं चल रहा है, दिखता है, this kind of things. Then suddenly they found me taking shells and planting them on the beach. अभी तो पूरा काम का गया. I mean, nobody could.
Bad guy.
Bad guy and mad guy, because who this MBBS हुआ है और shells लेके समंदर पे चिपकाता है. So he must have totally gone mad. And somehow I had difficulty when I started doing this for 2 years. When it was a problem, I had to even borrow money from my friends to pay my staff, because for installation it requires help.
Material.
Yeah. And then I sent an entry for Busan Biennale, one of my entries, and got an award of some 8 lakhs.
Okay.
So now getting 8 lakhs for planting shells was unheard of. So that's how slowly it started.
Well, you were lucky, but maybe there are many artists,
Yeah, but if you do good work, sustain, but at the same time, I do this work. At the same time, sometimes it doesn't sell. So I have to do some work for sustaining.
Okay.
So I'm lucky to get some, I was lucky to get some other work. For example, I have done some sculptures. Okay, some hotel would say, would you do something for this wall? So I have done something. As much as possible, I have tried to, do something which I believe in.
Traditional art.
Yeah, I believe in. But sometimes somebody says, no, हमको कुछ राजस्थान का चाहिए. But during those days, suppose I am in the mood of not Rajasthan, I am in the mood of Kerala. I have to switch off my mood to Rajasthan. But to earn that money, so that I could pursue my this thing. So now I'm not doing it because I don't need to do it. Luckily, I've got enough work. But until very recently, I had to do some of this kind of work. So you make a balance of it.
So could that be the reason? That's why we don't find many Indian artists pursuing installation art. And then there is this huge school of artists who say this is all humbug, because one, maybe there is a problem to understand this, and two, that most artists don't like to break boundaries. That's a problem with most, particularly Indian art.
Yeah. So, one reason why installation artists are not finding buyers and all this is, in India, we do not have enough museums.
Yeah.
We have hardly any museums.
Yeah.
So, apart from the government museums, which actually don't even allow nail on the wall sometimes.
Yeah.
So, they have not even understood what is this about.
And they're so obsessed with the
the past, and they don't want to change. Even very few museums like maybe Devi Art Foundation and Kiran Nadar, and maybe a few exceptions, there's hardly anything.
Yeah.
So basically installation art, like the kind of shells, all that, it has to be housed in a museum. I went to Korea for this Busan Biennale, and I happened to go to different places, and then now in Seoul, There was a Samsung Museum of Modern Art, a wonderful building designed by two French architects. I was happy to see Anish Kapoor right at the entrance, and there were a few other Indian artists. But they had such wonderful collection. It is a private museum done by Samsung. We have enough companies as big as Samsung or perhaps bigger in India.
Yeah.
And I think corporate people should learn a lesson from this. And even the government, there should be some kind of, a proper museum should be set up. And I do not believe that logon ko samajhti nahi art, they don't understand. No, people, you give them good thing, they understand. They have been changing governments. So they do understand what is good for them and what is,
When you select material for your installation, you select material according to the environment, or the environment makes the material? How does it work?
Well, see, most of my work has been on the seaside. So a lot of material comes from the sea or connected with the sea and connected with the life around the seashore.
Yeah.
So the fishermen become also material of my work. The shells become, the boats become. So as much as possible, I try to do work which connects with the environment there, connects with the theme, the idea I want to propagate. And as much as possible, I would like to use natural material. It's not a hard and fast rule, because some of the works then are converted into bronze. I think we'll talk about it later, how the temporariness goes off. But so I choose material what is suitable for the work.
So I'm just curious to understand, what's more important, the idea, the material has to suit the idea, or the idea comes from material? Or
it happens both ways, but I basically believe that whatever you present, whatever you do, has to move you visually. So it is visual art.
Yeah.
Many a times in many biennales and art fairs, I see, for example, a lot of material kept to read. So you will take maybe 2 hours to read the whole thing if you decide to really look at it. I personally do not like that kind of work, because I think if you're calling it visual art, it should move you visually.
Yeah.
So it should look, whatever kind of a feeling, you get a feeling of mystery or you feel of joy or whatever, but it should move you. So I use material which is suitable, and both ways it happens. So sometimes I just looked at, for example, I was in Jaipur recently, and I was invited for an art camp, where even Raza was part of that camp. So I was very elated, and had a wonderful time with Raza. Actually, I interviewed him, and I have kept notes to write an article about him. And usually when you are going to these camps, you basically vomit what you have by-hearted.
Okay. That's a strange expression.
Yeah, it's exactly that, because within 2 days,
what can you do?
You do that. I just decided, let me just go unprepared or without any kind of a thing, and let's see what to do there. And so I went there. The organizers had given me a car, so I went to Jaipur city and started walking around. And I came across one shop there, and this shop was selling products created out of used tires. They were sort of used truck tires, and they had sliced it, they had made strips of it, they had made sort of flat pieces out of it. And I asked, क्या कर रहे हो? No, तो जो किस लिए इस्तेमाल होता है? So there were two guys selling it. नाम पूछा मोहन. दूसरा क्या नाम है? Two brothers, छोटा मोहन. So there are two Mohans, brothers.
Okay. Same name. What do you call
Bada Mohan, Chota Mohan. So they were selling these tires. So I liked that material. And I said, I must make use of it. Abhi kya kar sakte hai? So now the material decided what I would do.
Okay.
So kya kar sakte? This is a wonderful material. Then I thought, on the roads of Rajasthan, the tires of the trucks get worn out. And so do the soles of the camel foot. So I decided to make a camel foot with used truck tires. So that's how that material took me to what I want to do.
And then tire developed into so many more things. Tell me more a little about
it. Okay, since we have talked about tires, then suddenly I started thinking, now tire is an interesting material. It's thrown out. In a way it becomes sustainable art. It becomes environmental art. I'm using material which is recycled art.
Yeah.
And so then I thought I will create a carpet with used tires. Then I incorporated some saris, old saris into the carpet for design. Then I decided to make a turtle with tires, basically to narrate the paradox of slow and fast. The turtle is slow, created with fast tires. Then I started using car parts, tail lights of cars, headlights of cars. And then I'm doing a series of carpets. Then I wanted to do one of the exhibitions, I wanted to do a chili. We can talk about it later, but I decided to make the chili with used tires.
Okay.
Because tire is a symbol of movement, of a journey.
Yeah.
And so chilies, for example, we would like to talk about this chili thing a little bit elaborately. But since it came from somewhere, the travel of a chili, so I used the tires. So there's some sort of a connection. Now tires have become quite a favorite material of mine.
Okay, I'll take this talk to some other direction now. We were talking a little while before about this fear whenever you try to speak out the truth, whenever you try to address the political, social issues. One doesn't stop wondering at what happened with countries like Iran, where there is so much of political oppression. And one of the best movies come from there. Lately, I have been fascinated by Iranian literature, and very recently I read a graphic novel from Iran. It's called Somebody's Paradise. Now, there are two things. We in India live in this total freedom. We have democracy, we have freedom of speech, and we are becoming narrower and narrower. You use one word in a film song and theaters are burnt. And here is a country where there is so much of political oppression we cannot even imagine. And their art flourishes, artistic expression flourishes, it evolves so much. As an artist, how do you look at it? This is a strange phenomenon.
Yeah, it is a strange phenomena. I have myself seen quite a few Iranian movies in the International Film Festival, which happens in Goa. And they are wonderful. Okay, within the limit of their freedom, they do things. And perhaps when they value it so much, when there is scarcity of food, something like in my childhood, I used to remember we used to get one Cadbury chocolate once a week, which is to share one piece amongst everybody. Now we give 2, 3. There's no value for that. So I think the value also comes with a little bit of scarcity, and those people are using it beautifully. But that does not really, stop me from, there should be complete freedom, of course, of the expression, that I have no doubts in my mind about. Talking about this phenomena of basically the fanatics,
the narrowness
which is going in. I mean, this is total stupid, and this is happening also because there is political hypocrisy across political parties. We know that the right wing are fanatic, but I think Nehru was the last secular politician. Later on, in the name of vote bank, secularism is sacrificed at the altars of vote bank. So nobody wants to take a stand. We had a Congress government in Goa. We had bomb blasts created by the fanatics, the Hindu fanatics. The chief minister did not take a strong stand. Why? That is because नहीं होती है वो भी शायद वो भी votes मिल सकते हैं. So basically all this, and another thing this Hindu fanatics don't understand is that nudity and all this, what they are sort of fighting against, we had nudity in India. Nudity was celebrated in Pahari paintings and other paintings. We have the king and the queen having sex portrayed very graphically. That concept of nudity as a scene is Victorian. And so when so when they are sort of opposing the nudity, they don't realize that they are following Victorian thing. They are following the Victorian thing. They are not following the Indian concepts. So they are stupid.
You are also a cartoonist. So what kind of risks do you run, and do you feel sometimes a little your freedom a little curtailed because of so much happening around, so much of this madness going?
No, I don't allow my freedom to be curtailed. So it's basically whether you allow it to be curtailed or not. I have even gone to jail in my activism. But whatever, not Ganesha problem, I didn't go to jail, but in the student activists.
But this incident, did it kind of...
No, it irritated me, but did not scare me. Because if you get phone calls every 2 minutes threatening you, तुम्हारे हाथ काट डालेंगे and all this, you get irritated. But I was
this
never.
actually happened in Kerala, so
It has happened, but then one has to take some risk. Ultimately, all great things, whatever, I mean, freedom has to be earned. It is not given as a donation.
that's true. Now, I want to understand, most of your installations are temporary.
Yeah.
So, what happens? I mean, the artist would also like these his creations to have some kind of permanence, some kind of life. So, what do you do about that?
Yeah. First of all of us are temporary.
That's right.
So the permanence is.
So, but canvas art has.
Yeah, okay, it has, but essentially, I mean, I think the best explanation would be by a poem by Tagore. It's a very lovely poem. I love it. He says, "Waves write their poetry on the sand, and not satisfied, wipe them off over and over again." So, writing of this poetry by the waves and the process of wiping off goes on. It goes on with many different things. So it's not just at the level of art, but old traditions are wiped off, new come, old goes, new things. It is a process of, the transition is just a process as a part of human life. As far as I'm concerned, again I will take the help of, I would like some of my works to be permanent, and many of my works are actually converted into bronze.
Okay.
So what I do with the shell, for example, I cast the shells into bronze.
All right.
I have done work with palm leaves, which are again cast into bronze. So I have done that. So that I do whenever.
And where are they installed?
Now, for example, the work with shells, I did it in Brisbane in Australia. I was invited to do it there. And then the work is now in Saudi Arabia, in the campus of the King Abdullah University of Science and Technology.
Okay.
So it's installed in the bank of the Red Sea. Okay. And then I have some works in Dubai, I have some works in Delhi, the Garden of Science, the Garden of Five Senses, and then now I'm doing one in Australia. And in India, in Goa, I have been an activist of trying to get public art. I would like to spend some time at the end of the interview about public art in...
Actually, I was going to ask you the next question.
Okay.
Yeah,
so, so the question is this, but I will again take help of another Tagore poem, which is my favorite to answer the same question. It says, when death knocks on my door, when death knocks on my door and says your time has come, I shall tell death, I never lived in time, I lived in love. And when death asks me, will your works be remembered? Will your songs be remembered, or your sculptures will be remembered forever, or will they last forever? I will say, I do not know. But when I created them, I felt eternity.
Beautiful.
I wish it was mine.
How beautiful. So that answers whatever I asked. Okay, you also selected 20 artists for your Munich show. Artists from 20 years, last 20 years. Indian art, last 20 years.
For which show?
For Munich.
No, there's some misunderstanding there. I never did any show in Munich.
Okay.
No. There was in Delhi.
In Delhi?
Yeah, they're not exactly 20 artists, but there were a group of artists. I was only an enzyme, a facilitator for a show.
Okay.
And I'm not, so basically, because now I have already become 52 and I'm graying, so younger artists, it's nice to promote them. So, well,
Okay, this is what I want to understand now. Since perhaps, because you came from medical profession, you already had some kind of something to fall back upon.
Yeah.
Many young artists today, what happens, two things are happening. Art is going big. So there is this great fascination that you can become a big artist. At the same time, there is a reality, and the reality is that there are not many buyers in India. And there is very little scope for experimentation. So how do you look at these young artists who are caught between these two things? And what do you think is the way out for them?
First of all, now art is a very serious business. Just going to art colleges you don't become an artist. It's same thing. I mean, you go to medical college, you turn out to become a doctor. But art colleges or music colleges, you don't. We have so many classical musicians in the country, and we have about 5,000 music colleges. Hardly one has come from the music colleges.
That's true.
So most of the classical musicians have come from other
From
traditions.
gharanas, yeah, traditions, yeah.
So in art, of course, we don't have gharanas, but essentially people go to art college, okay, when you go there, if you realize that this is not for you, you should quietly leave. Same thing like any other profession. So most important for young people is to basically do things which they will love. I have 2 children. My son is not so good at academic studies, but he paints brilliantly and sculpts brilliantly. So I think that's his gift. So you don't have to take, I don't know why it is mandatory for somebody to pass that mathematics of 10th standard. I was a good student, my daughter is an excellent student, but my son has difficulties there. So it's actually stupid that you make them suffer to somehow. So the thing is, one should only do what one loves, and not everybody. And the art education here is very, very faulty. 99% of the art colleges are bad, very, very bad. I don't want to name them, but most of them I find, I mean, they're following outdated system of teaching. And actually, I want to become a little bit of an activist in that with the help of a few of my friends. Though I have myself not gone to the art school, I do understand art education now because I've tried to get into it. Like having departmentalization, like sculpture department, painting department, graphic department is nonsense. Art is, I mean, it's not only this, I mean, all arts are connected. It's literature, poetry, everything is connected. So you cannot just have a graphic, departmentalize it, compartmentalize it. The same thing architecture. We have very bad architects today, that's because it has been separated from art. Earlier Michelangelo designed the churches. And architecture and art is together. Now it is separated, so many architects don't even have that aesthetic sense.
That's true.
They only use the techniques of beams and columns. So anyway, so the question is, but what is my advice to the younger? I think one has to pursue it. It is something you have taken a dive into this. You have to struggle. You have to basically try to get across the river in which you have dived. There will be difficulties. If you, I mean, there is no shortcuts to this sort of things. I mean, very few artists do. Nobody gets it on a silver spoon. I did not get it on a silver spoon. I had to struggle also. So everybody has to struggle. So that's a part of the thing in all professions. We are talking about artists and journalism. How many really becomes when come to a level which is good? Most of them are okay, just doing some routine stuff. So the same thing in all professions. So I don't think there is much difference between being an artist and essentially, I think the passion should be there and you should love what you're doing and explore, learn more. So that's it.
You are an activist and you are also concerned about art education. One more area of art which requires, in my understanding, a lot of work is art writing, where we lack very, very badly.
Yes.
We hardly have art criticism now.
We only have art promotion.
We only have art promotion. Those PR agencies would write something about. So how it is damaging actually in a way? How do you see?
No, it is damaging because many a times some artist who is not worthy of any praise is praised to glory. An artist who is really worthy is sort of not even recognized, not even written about. So this sort of thing happens. Connection hai. I know that fellow in that newspaper, so chalo, hum batate hain, ho jayega. So there is a kind of very casual approach. We do not have a proper education art criticism also. We do not have universities which will give you a degree. And I will just like to have an anecdote about what exactly is happening in the art schools. And I don't mind because basically they said right to offend is the right. So I will be offending somebody when I say this, but that is not a problem. In Goa, the Secretary of Education happened to come to my house and have a look at all the installations and he liked them. He said, Subodh, this is nice. I have not seen something like this before. Why don't you just do it in the art school? How much will it cost? So he said, you do a workshop with the students. I said, okay, well, it will cost maybe ₹1 lakh rupees, 50,000 or 2 lakhs, whatever. He said, doesn't matter, whatever, 1 or 2 lakhs, whatever is the cost, I will give. I only require a letter from the principal that, okay, this is good for the students and we would like to conduct a workshop with Subodh Kerkar. Just one letter and we require 2 lakhs or 1 lakh, whatever. So I went to the principal. I showed him, this is what I'm doing. Not that he must have been aware of whatever I'm doing, but I said, okay, this is what the Secretary Education has told me. He told me that, Subodh, this is nice, but it is out of syllabi. And this is not an exception.
Kind of mindset.
This is not an exception. This is usually what happens in most places.
Your namesake, when he had come here, Subodh Gupta,
Yeah.
he said that till date, when I had talked to him, he said no one has ever invited him in any of the art schools in India.
Exactly.
So how do the art students would grow,
Yeah,
if they
exactly.
don't know what is happening in the contemporary world?
Yeah.
Okay, coming to my last question. How do you look at the role of academies in promoting art, in educating art? The biggest problem in India between the artist and the audience or spectator, whatever, viewer, whatever you call, there's no way that the viewer would come to know and actually learn about art. It's most people are self-taught. There is no mechanism, organized mechanism. So where in this context, how do you see academies doing work?
Yeah, okay, I would like to answer that, and also I would like to talk about public art at the end.
public.
Yeah. Now, this question is, again, academies, museums have a great role to play. Again, they are not doing it properly. There are exceptions, like, okay, there are individuals doing it.
Individuals,
Yeah.
yes.
Like, for example, here, I must really appreciate Vandana. He has been very active in doing things, inviting. So it's that kind of thing is there, but not happening everywhere. Next door, we have the museum here. I went there yesterday. And I think the way the things which are displayed is outdated. It's a very good building. It's inside, interiors are not very good for a museum because museumology has changed over years. We cannot stick to the kind of display. That is the storehouse, the godown of artifacts. It's not a museum. There is not a museum.
But it has many interesting spaces.
Yeah, interesting spaces, but the way the things are displayed is more of a godown and not a storeroom of artifacts. You have, for example, the work of Taib Mehta, we have work of Akbar Padamsi, and then there is some lot of nonsense around it, which is not worthy of it. It will not normally even enter the outside gate of a good museum. That kind of works are there. At the same time, there is no proper representation. Display is very bad. I have taken a lot of interest in museums, and whenever I travel, I visit museum, make notes. And so, by those standards, and then somehow, I mean, this has to change, and a museum has to be a place where you get educated easily in art and history. Basically, now we are only talking about art. So, we do not have, for example, a single museum. Let's take Chandigarh, a museum which has a comprehensive exhibition of contemporary Indian artists.
Yeah.
A good selection of whoever. Forget about Picasso's and all that. But basically, contemporary, there are a lot of Indian artists who are there, and many of them will be willing to give, even donate a work if a proper museum is. Yeah, but we don't have one. So this kind of museums will educate the public. And another thing is public art, because if Muhammad does not go to the mountain, mountain has to come. That's the role of public art. So, shall we talk about public art?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, Chandigarh, I felt very good for many reasons. You know, when a little child is taken to a toffee shop, a switch shop, the mouth waters. I felt almost like that as a land artist in Chandigarh. For the last few mornings, I have been going for long walks in the Bougainvillea Park, in the Rose Garden, and many other areas. And my mouth is watering. Because such spaces you don't see anywhere in the country.
That's true.
No other city, no other town in the country has such kind of spaces. And I think Chandigarh offers itself, I mean, it's hungry for art because the spaces are there.
Yeah.
And only, I mean, many people told me that the ghost of Rorik, ghost of Corbusier is still ruling. So Corbusier didn't want any sculptures, but I think they're mistaken. Corbusier did not want sculptures of leaders, statues.
Which is the practice here in art.
Which is the practice. That's basically about all the art that we have in the rest of the in Delhi. I mean, no contemporary art. So Corbusier was against that. He himself was a sculptor. The hand is his, and it's a very good sculpture. So he wants public sculpture. And one thing just not too far from here I saw was the Eiffel Tower. I thought because Corbusier was French that is allowed. So that's nonsense.
joke.
Yeah, that's a joke. So, and we have good people here. We have people like Vandana, we have people like Professor Goswami, and who understand.
They have great
So
understanding.
one has to have proper curatorial practice to choose public art here. And Chandigarh is craving for, and when one could have, we have a rock garden, but we could create so many other sculpture parks because the land is there. And I think Chandigarh is one of the, it could take a leadership in the country in public art because the space is there. In a place like Mumbai, there's no place to have a sculpture.
That's true.
There's no place to walk.
You can't even see. I mean,
You can't even
there's
see.
no space.
So I think the administration should look into this and try to evolve some kind of a sculpture walks of international standards where people would come and look at hundreds of sculptures.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
It was a pleasure talking to you. I must thank you on behalf of Chandigarh Lalit Kala Akademi. Thanks so much.
Pleasure.